Hello, everyone. I am Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with Nico Parker from The Last of Us. And you play Sarah in this story, and her story in the show is considerably expanded when you compare it to what happened in the video game. I'm curious if you played at all. Did you try to go back to that? Was it useful to have as a sort of inspiration?
I, well, being involved in it, I didn't play the game and I didn't whatever after being involved, but prior to in any way kind of knowing anything about the show or a couple years ago, when I was way too young, like way too young. I used to watch like gameplay and I would watch like gamers play it and I would watch silent gaming and I would watch they had like teens react to The Last of Us, and it would always be like everyone cries at the beginning. And I used to watch like all those videos because I was like so strangely obsessed with um the beginning, like all of the
Mm.
Sarah stuff. I was like, it's so sad. How is it so sad? And I just loved it. So I was very familiar with it, prior to in any way myself being involved. And then when I actually got it weirdly was when I like really kind of stepped away from the game, I think, because you don't want to be, they did such a fantastic job in the game, but you don't want to be like directly kind of like mimicking
Mhm.
what they're doing because otherwise, you want to see that, then you can just watch the game. So I think I tried to kind of stay away and like have my own interpretation of the character, but it was difficult because they do such a wonderful job and I'd seen it before, so I was like, I want to watch so badly, and Pedro was like, do not watch the game. Yeah.
Well, you did your episode was co-written by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann. Neil co-created the game. Were you able to pick his brain at all? Did he offer anything about the character?
He was very much just kind of like, they both, him and Craig both kind of wanted me to, acknowledge the importance of the character in terms of like how she impacts Joel's story arc. And, in later episodes, you kind of see him come to deal with the trauma and you kind of like see it in a way that it doesn't get as fleshed out in the game, I don't think. So, they were kind of like, would consistently kind of remind me of that, which I was like, thanks, guys, I get it, it's stressful. um, but I think when it came to kind of like the character and stuff, I think more so Neil would just kind of like drop in things and like Easter eggs and stuff that I would be like, oh my God, that's so like he's such a genius. Like he just like would throw in these kind of like tidbits of information, like, the t-shirt and
Mm.
because it's the same t-shirt in the game, and like he would like tell me about how the name of the band actually like his daughter came up with one day and they just put it on the t-shirt, or like there's a couple people noticed there's like a card on the dresser and it's like a birthday card for Joel and it's the same card as in the game, and I read it and it says the same thing in the game that it says in the show. You never see it but it's still there. So like more so he would just kind of like drop in like tiny Easter eggs, and me having like played the game, I was like, I know that one. But no, in terms of character, I think yeah, they definitely let me have my interpretation, and I mean it was all on the page. Like they wrote so beautifully, so I just kind of could read it, and then it was right there for all of us, I think.
Yeah. Was there anything that you think you poured into her from yourself? Like, do you relate to her in any kind of way?
I think I relate to her in kind of like there's this like an optimism kind of and like a kind of bouncy nature to her, and like just like lots of like light
Mm.
in a way that I feel like I can also be incredibly pessimistic and annoying and like teenage annoyingness, but I think that like I'm predominantly a positive person. I think that you kind of see that with her like throughout the beginning, and specifically her relationship with Joel, because he's kind of a glass half empty kind of guy. So I think I think I tend to lean towards the latter in terms of how I am, which I think she does too. And I think also her fear, I think I just every time she was scared I was genuinely scared too, off camera, because I'm like, oh my, like it's so all the actors and infected are so amazing, so they're genuinely terrifying filming it. So like all of that fear is my own fear, so I think all of those reactions, or like a scream or a breath or a wide eye, is like genuinely just my reaction. So I think all that stuff I very much relate to her in the kind of stress and fear.
Yeah, and your number one scene partner is Pedro Pascal in this.
Yeah.
And I think the two of you have a very short amount of time to build up that father-daughter bond. And it comes across really well. How did you work on that with him? What was that like?
I mean, it was so lucky because we just like immediately got on really well. So it didn't feel like work. Yeah, no, he's just so wonderful. I mean, like how amazing is it that we get to like live in a time where Pedro Pascal is ruling the world? Like it's so awesome. But he's just a lovely person, and working with him was so much fun because it didn't feel like work. And then when it came to kind of establishing a relationship, I guess we'd known each other maybe for like a week and a half, 2 weeks before we actually filmed anything. And by then I was already kind of like, oh, like we really get on and we're really good friends. By the time we finished, it was like he's just like my best friend. Like he's just like, kind of like my dad, kind of like my big brother, like, the
Mm.
combination of the two, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, but he's the best.
Yeah, he certainly is ruling the world at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, excuse me. You start out the episode with a lot of scenes that flesh out her character and give us a taste of who she is. But then, by contrast, you're also involved in the insane ending of that segment, running from the infected, trying to get out of town. What is it like doing those type of more intense action scenes?
They're weirdly, there's an element of them that's more stressful, I think, because there's more going on around you. And so there's less kind of in your control. Whereas if it's just like a conversation, it's kind of, like it's the people in the scene and camera and everything, but it's smaller and it feels smaller. But when it's bigger like that, it takes longer, or it can take longer, just because, there's so much background going on, and there's smoke and there's fire and there's health and safety, precautions everyone's taking and all that kind of stuff. And it takes longer in that sense. But also there's a kind of pressure that isn't on you because there's so much going on that it's like no one cares about what I'm doing. There's like, look at all that amazing stuff going on behind me or next to me or in front of me or what I'm looking at. So I think that kind of pressure isn't there. So for me, I thought all of that stuff was so fun. Like I was having such a fun time with all of it because as much as it is, you're kind of putting your brain and body in a place of like heightened stress throughout every take, it's just so kind of exhilarating. And at the end of the day, you just feel like you've done so much, and it's so lovely to just like walk away and be like, wow, like what an interesting and like energy exerting day that was.
Mm.
So I loved those days, but you would kind of wake up the next morning and be like, again, really? But then by the end of that day, you'd be the exact same kind of rush. So yeah,
Yeah.
I loved it. It was very fun.
Well, and at the end of that whole sequence, we tragically lose Sarah,
Yeah.
and it is one of the most devastating scenes you can think of. What was it like working on that intense of a moment with Pedro?
That one was weird, I think, because in the same sense of when it's bigger, there's so much going on, but that there's really like there's not a lot of lighting, it's quite dark, and it's like just kind of me, Pedro, and Gabriel is what it felt like. It felt like
Mhm.
it was just us three, and it's specifically kind of me and Pedro because I'm like with him like physically. So it was just kind of like, it felt like all of the pressure kind of fell onto, I mean, I say my shoulders, but I'm sure they felt the exact same. So it was, intense and a lot. And it's just the kind of thing of like your body knows that you're faking it, but your brain doesn't. So you wake up the next morning and you really feel like, oh my God, like what happened yesterday? I remember me and Pedro both woke up and I like FaceTimed him, and we were both like in bed and just looked like little like dead people, like just so awful. Um, but I mean, it was like I was so proud of it. I think like a week after, it took a minute to kind of stressing about it and did I do that okay and was that right? But I was so proud to have done it after it was done. And it was just kind of, you get there and you have all these ideas of like, and this is what someone sounds like if they've been shot, and this is this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna, and this bit's gonna really move people, and you have all these like preconceptions of what you're gonna do, and then you get there and it's just kind of all out the window. Um, so it was like stressful and daunting, and from the very first day to the very last, it was 100%. I would think about it every day and would be incredibly stressed about it. But after it was done, I was so proud of myself and I was so proud of everyone, and I was just very like, it was very yeah, it was a cathartic experience, I think, but still stressful.
Well, the stress was worth it. It all worked out great on screen anyway.
Thanks.
And was it, I was wondering if it was difficult to kind of keep things a secret for so long, because for gamers, there's more to the story that they wouldn't know about. And then for people who aren't familiar with this story, they're going to think that maybe you'd have the main character in the show, and then the show pulls the rug out. Was it hard to like keep all that under wraps?
It was weird because like I'd get some messages, like predominantly before it came out, I'd get so many messages being like, you're gonna die in 10 minutes anyway, and I'd be like, okay, well, okay, like so many of those, and I would just be like, it's actually like 30, like I would just like try like want to be like, no, but of course like it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean anything, like I know what the show is, I know whatever. But I just remember that kind of like, damn it, I kind of just want to say something and you just can't, and like you just have to wait till it comes out. And then the other one was after it came out, so much of like, you die? I thought you were gonna be in it the whole time. I'd just be like, no, I know. So like, I don't know. So I that was annoying in some regard, because like, you kind of just desperately want to like tell everyone everything. And I had read I think like two of the I'd seen 2 episodes before they came out. I watched all of them kind of as they were coming out, but I'd seen 2 of them before. And I was, after the first one, I kind of wanted to be like, but guys, like, wait to the next episode. Like, it gets so good. And I wanted to kind of like share that. But obviously, of course, you just kind of have to like wait and have everyone see it as it comes. So it was difficult to keep secrets and stuff, but nowhere near as difficult as it would be for like Bella or Pedro or anything, because like they've seen all of it, they've been there every day of filming, so like they know what's up way more than I do. But yeah, it was kind of annoying.
The internet can be brutal with its messages, pretty much. You grew up in an acting, a movie household with your parents, Tandaway Newton and Old Parker.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, did growing up around the industry, did that foster like a love or an interest in acting from a young age? When did you first know that you wanted to do this?
I mean, it didn't really make one in acting, because I feel like it's one of those things that you don't like fully acknowledge how special it is until you're actually doing it. So I would more so kind of like watch my mum on set, or I would watch my dad directing or whatever, and I would just be like, you guys spend so much time waiting around and it is really boring. Like I just kind of like, because it's a lot of like hurry up and wait. So I would just be like, guys, like come on now, you don't do anything. Like this is boring. And so it really kind of like put me off it for a really long time. And then when it came around to Dumbo, I think I'd done like one audition prior to that I really enjoyed doing. It was like a self-tape for something, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then when it came to like Dumbo auditions, I was just really enjoying them. And then I think I must have been like on the Dumbo set, like, or maybe like right before like the early kind of stages, and I was just like, this is so like, I just thought it was so enjoyable, and like what a privilege to get to do something that you love doing every day. And I kind of, I acknowledged that, and I was like, this is so cool and this is so fun, and like I really enjoy doing this. And so I think I properly realized like, oh, this is something that I very much would love to do with some kind of longevity, like throughout the filming of that. And then and then since then, but no, actually my parents, I was just like, I don't want to do it, you guys look like you're having an awful time.
Do they offer you like any advice about your career, about acting? You're like, no, stay out, it's
They
my
kind
thing.
of, they definitely do. Like, yeah, they definitely do. I can never like think of what it is when I'm asked about it, but they definitely do give me advice. I think more so it's, the things that they would, want to instill in me and, remind me of more so than like acting tips or anything would be just like etiquette on set. You're absolutely not the most important person there. It's a working machine and everyone is a cog in it. So it's like, just, without the sound or lights, anything, it's not running. So just because you're in front of the camera doesn't mean that you're any ounce more important than someone who's off. So I think that kind of, they reminded me of that consistently, but also they just act like that. So just, watching them lead by example, I kind of that's more so the advice that really sticks out to me, but they definitely give me, working advice too. I just don't know what it is. I clearly don't take it very seriously. What it is.
If they ask, just say you remember. You mentioned before about Dumbo, really enjoying that process. It was quite the debut to make because you were with Tim Burton and Colin Farrell, really, a huge cast of people. Was that intimidating for you at that younger age to be around all that?
I think it was good because I was so young, I didn't realize how intimidating it should be and would be. So no, not really. I think I had a bit of a crush on Colin, which is creepy, because he was my dad. But I mean, it's Colin Farrell, so like, of course. But I definitely like was a bit like, "Hi, Colin," like when he'd come in the morning. So I think that kind of stress was like up there. But I was young enough that I was just kind of like, this is so fun, and the sets were so fun, like a big circus, and there was so much. Everyone was so lovely. It was like the loveliest set to be on as a kid, and I just had the best time. So that kind of like impending stress of like Disney movie while simultaneously being like with some Hollywood vets wasn't really there, other than the fact that I was like, "Hi, Colin." So yeah, that was it really in terms of stress. I feel like I probably should have been a bit more stressed, but I'm grateful that I wasn't, looking back.
Yeah. Well, now that you have found that you love this profession, do you have dream roles that you are hoping to tackle, or is there some type of story that you're really dying to play?
I mean, I feel like all of my dream roles have been done. Like I think all of the ones that I like desperately love, I'm either too old for or have been done. But like my dream roles, obviously I'm definitely too old for these ones now, but would be like Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird, Addie in Paper Moon, Baby in Dirty Dancing, which I'm not too old for, but again, like it's happened. And I'd love to be in a horror movie. I think is something that is on my agenda. I'd love to be in a horror movie just because everyone says that they're the funnest things to film because it's so, um, like catastrophic and not how it is in real life. That yeah, I'd love to do that. But I don't really have anything on my agenda.
Well, you got a little bit of practice with horror in The Last of
Yeah.
Us, so maybe
Well, yeah, just
that'll
because
be
all
next
that
summer.
stuff was so fun. So I'd love to like, revisit that kind of scope of entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sitting with me and talking
Thank
about
you
The
for
Last of
having me.
Us. For everyone watching, subscribe to Gold Derby and keep up with us throughout the rest of this season. Nico, thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.